Hi, I'm Mike Zwingman, Agronomy R&D Manager for Central Valley Ag. This is your Monday Agronomy Update video that coincides with the Reach Out article in the CVA blog site. Today, we're out here prepping for the Innovation Series this summer. Some of you have gotten those Save the Date cards in the mail. And what we're going to talk about today is the sink-source relationship. A couple weeks ago in my article, I talked about mastering the sink-source relationship, especially when it comes to nitrogen. But I didn't say much about it. And today, I'm going to explain what the sum of the sink is and what the sum of the source is and how we manage that relationship to optimize your profitability. First thing when we're talking about the sink. In corn, we're talking about yield. We're talking about the grain you put in your tank, the stuff you put in the bin, and the stuff you bring to the elevator to sell. So how do we maximize your sink? The very first thing is when we talk about population management. When we choose that plant population, we're setting the maximum number of ears per acre that we can put in the field by the number of plants we put out there. Before you open that bag this spring, that bag of corn's got a yield potential of about 750 bushel. The minute we start planting, let's say you put your population in at 35,000 plants per acre, we've changed that maximum yield potential to about 330 or 340 bushels per acre based on that 9 or 10 bushels per thousand plants we have out there. This calculation is really based on the average ear size of most our kernels and most our ears in a field. So once we've made that decision to plant that population, everything that I happened to talk about in the germination article a couple weeks ago that ends up calculating our net effective stand percentage lowers our yield potential. So let's just say you only get 95% of those plants out, or 90% of those plants out. Now we're at about 290 bushel per acre. As we move through the year, we get to the ear determination phase. And depending on how those ears develop, we could lose a little more. As you see, all these stress factors end up how we go from that 600 to that 320, all the way down to that 230 or 240 you're used to getting. That's the sum of the sink. The number of ears per acre, the number of kernels per ear, and the test weight. So once we get through that ear determining phase, the test weight is all the grain fill that we have after tassel. So when we get into that reproductive stages, it's all about managing sunlight, nitrogen, and water. That's the sum of the sink. The sum of the source is pretty easy. It's the nitrogen you apply, which is the decision you make based on your yield goal, and then the nitrogen that's mineralized by the soil. Those two factors become the sum of the source. We can easily manage the sum of the source by managing the nitrogen we apply. But we have to have an understanding of how much mineralization there is. That's where the crop models come in. That's where understanding what our soil types do. That's understanding that in a greater growing season, when we have more yield potential, the soil is going to release more nitrogen, especially in our better soils, as compared to our worse soils. And in a worse growing season, we're going to release less of that nitrogen from the soil. So it's going to take more applied nitrogen. That's where using the models, using timing as one of our nitrogen management tools, help us manage that sum of the source, because we can make decisions later in the year when we're getting into those yield determining phases and we have a better understanding what our yield potential is. This summer at this location in Cuba and up in Randolph, we're going to be talking and we're going to be demonstrating how we're going to put those tools together. The nitrogen models, the use of timing, the use of placement, and the use of the protection technologies to maximize your nitrogen investment. And we're going to have another little one about how potassium and sulfur play a role in nitrogen management, on how we manage that sink-source relationship. As you start planning in the next week, as you start in those field operations after this wet spell, be safe and we'll see you next week.